In this video, let's take an in-depth look at Bulldozer from Audio Assault. Here we are with Bulldozer. We are here in Pro Tools. Now we have this instantiated on a mono track. You can also instantiate this onto a stereo track. So just be aware of that as well. That will come into play with some of your stomp boxes, okay? So just keep that in mind. Let's go over the interface here. We'll take an in-depth look at this really amazing high gain metal amplifier. So we'll start over here with the gate. Hopefully you know what a gate does. A gate will cut off a sound once it goes below the threshold, so it can help cut off those notes that are just trailing out way too long, or amp noise. Or if you want to do some djent, you can raise your gate way up high. And then you can get that really djenty sound with that gate coming down really quickly. Now we have three areas up here. We have the stomp, the amp, and the cab area. We'll start here with the stomps. We have 5 places for different stomps. And this comes loaded with a bunch of different stomps that you can just load up however you want. We'll just load some up here. You see we have a boost, a screamer, a compressor, distortion, chorus, tremolo, doubler, delay, reverb, auto wah, and we can also put those in the effects loop as well. This doubler you won't really hear much on a mono track, so try using that with a stereo track, and you should hear that doubling come up. But once you throw whatever effects you happen to want in your chain, you can always move them around, turn them on and turn them off. Just like you would real stomp boxes or any other stomp effect. Also, if you come in here and you turn your amp off, so you bypass the amp, you could also come in here and bypass the cabinet. Then you could use just the stomps on any other audio source or guitar amp sim that you want. Let's move over to the amp section. So here is our amp. You can see we can bypass it, as we've already seen. Turn it on, turn it off. We have 2 channels here. Let's just flip channel B off. So we have channel A, which we can get a cleaner tone, more of a sort of an overdriven tone if we really push that drive way up there. So this amp is capable of more than just straight up heavy metal. You can do lots of stuff with this amp, and it sounds, sounds really great. So then coming over here to our channel B, our really high gain channel here, We of course have the drive knob, and you can get a lot of gain out of this amp. You can get it very, very saturated. And by the way, you can get away with lower amounts of gain, especially if you're going to end up double tracking your guitars. You probably won't need a whole lot of gain if you're going to be double tracking. But you have plenty of gain in this amp. And of course you have all of your basic controls, your lows, your mids, your highs, you have presence, and then power as well. Moving on from there, we have our max switch that we can turn that on for even a more saturated tone. And some tone shaping there as well. Turn that on and off however you like. So one thing I really like about this amp sim is no matter how much drive we put on this thing, and even if we up the presence and the high, we don't get that really fizzy, hairy sort of overtones there at the top that can often afflict a lot of guitar amp simulators, where it's just too much fizz and you just can't get a good tone. You can get all kinds of great middle tones from Bulldozer without that really hairy, fizzy top end. Down here is where we have our presets. It comes with several presets, and of course you can set up and save your own presets there. Even here on just the default, if I just go to default, it sounds amazing. Up here to the right, we have our output section, so you can compensate for the level of output depending on what settings you have. Sometimes if you have like a really low mid, really low in the lows, then your output will be, of course, lower overall. So you can compensate with that with our output knob. Moving on to our cabinet section. Now this section, you can really, shape your tone a lot. I mean, your cabinet and your microphone make a huge difference to your overall sound. So we have several cabinets. We have our British, we have an American 212. We have a Japanese 2x12. And we have one of my favorites, the German 4x12. We can choose those. The graphics don't change, but you can see that right there. You can also double click on your grill to hide that. Double click again to bring it back. We have several microphones. Dynamic 57, which is a classic microphone for miking guitar. It just has a really good frequency response for capturing guitar. Moving on from there, we have a condenser microphone. Now, a condenser is going to capture a larger range of frequencies versus our dynamic microphone. You can really hear that more full low end there with that condenser. Then we have a ribbon microphone. Now, in reality, a ribbon can be a really sort of delicate microphone that you may not want to put directly next to a completely dimed out guitar cabinet. But we have a ribbon here, and again, sort of like a condenser, it's going to capture a larger range on the frequency spectrum. And moving on from there, we have a bit of a larger diaphragm dynamic microphone as well. So not only can we change our microphone, we can also grab it and move it around wherever we want. And get all kinds of different tones just by moving it around. Very cool. From there, we have a distance knob, so you can get more of that room tone and sort of airiness and distance there in your overall sound. Just adjust that to taste. Really great control to have. Then we have a high pass and a low pass. And here's a visual demonstration of a high pass right here. A high pass will let the highs pass. It cuts off the lows. So you can really sort of carve out that low end. If your low end happens to be a bit too flubby, a little bit too round, say you're using a condenser microphone, you want to tighten up that low end because you have too much of the low end frequency range, and let your bass and kick drum fill in that lower end. On the opposite end, we have our low pass, which our low pass will let the lows pass. A low pass is useful for carving out some of those upper range sort of over the top harmonics, that really high end that can sometimes get a bit harsh or fizzy. All right, so we have those controls built in right here. They work exactly the same as our EQ does. Exactly the same. Just adjust them to taste and get the exact sound that you want. Moving on from there, we have more. You can also, of course, turn your cabinet off, which we already showed. But we also have the option to use impulse responses, and this ships with several impulse responses. If you don't happen to have any, we'll still have our high pass, our low pass, and then we'll have the impulse response volume. So if the volume is a bit too low, just turn up your impulse response volume. Now, one thing you can't do is just drag in impulse responses that you happen to have. I have the full Redwire's big box bundle with a ton of guitar amp impulse responses. So if I wanted to use one of these here, I can't just drag it in. Be great if I could, but you can't. If we click this folder icon, it doesn't give us an ability to load anything. I mean, I can navigate to that folder, but choosing something doesn't load it. Okay, so there is a workaround to be able to use whatever impulse responses you already have and use them right here within Bulldozer. Of course, another thing you could do would be to bypass your cabinet here in Bulldozer and load up whatever impulse response loader you happen to like. So if I wanted to use Mix IR2 to load all of my impulse responses, that would be no problem. Just turn the cabinet off here and use this for my cabinet. But if I happen to want to use my impulse responses directly within Bulldozer, I can do that as well. So again, just make sure you click this folder icon. It will open up the folder that contains all of your impulse responses for Bulldozer. Navigate to wherever your impulse response library is, and then copy, don't move, but copy the file over, drop it, there it is. We can do this in real time. Now this will be available right here in Bulldozer. We can choose that and use it without having to use a secondary impulse response loader. So that is Bulldozer from Audio Assault, a well-priced guitar amp simulator that sounds absolutely fantastic. Again, just by coming to the default, you already have a modern metal tone that will almost fit right in with very minimal tweaking on almost any sort of metal track. We have tons of features in here, your gates, tons of stomps that you can choose from and mix and match and move around however you want. A great amp with 2 channels, so if you need a little cleaner sound, maybe a bit of an overdriven sound, go for channel A. Of course, you can combine that with your stomps and maybe get an even more distorted sound with channel A. Then, of course, we have our monster channel B with the max switch drive. Of course, all of our parameters here, presence, and of course, power. And don't forget your cabinet settings. Your cabinet, as I mentioned, makes a huge difference to your overall tone. You can move your microphone around wherever you want, choose from several different microphones, of course, adjust your distance, your high pass, and so on and so forth. So lots of options here in this amp sim plugin. Again, a great plugin without that overly harsh, fizzy top end, even when you take the drive way up high. It sounds absolutely fantastic. You can always go check it out at audio-assault.com and go check out Bulldozer. This has been Bulldozer in depth.